Welcome to episode 105 of Rubbish Talk with me, Alasdair.
And me, Jane Bond.
Welcome back, Jane. We've missed you for a few episodes.
Yeah, I know you've managed very well without me. I'm sure lots of people to chat to.
We never even explained you were away last time. I don't think. I think we just
You
took the
just
guest.
took me
We just
out, did you?
Yep. We did it.
Oh well, that's fine. That's fine. We're back with lots of news, but you're back from your intrepid adventure, Alasdair, which sounds. I'm not sure whether it sounds really, really horrendous or very nice getting away from everything. I'll leave that for you.
It was wonderful. So the adventure Jane's referring to, I walked last week, the week before, a bit of last week and a bit of the week before. I walked the Southern Upland Way, which goes all the way from Port Patrick in the southwest of Scotland across to just south of Dunbar to a place called Cogsponge Path. So a total distance of 10 miles.
Oh my goodness.
And I got one of the days, I'm allowed to swear. Do we swear in the podcast? I was going to say the shittiest weather I've ever been out in my life. I was absolutely wringing wet and soaking, and it was just horrible. So much so, I ended up staying 4 nights in a tent, one in a bothy, and that particular night I ended up staying in a hotel because it was that miserable. But I did start the journey. So my journey started with wandering along the road and seeing a building contractor illegally dispose of a demolished building in a field.
Oh no.
I then walked around the corner to see a 3-piece sofa in a field.
Yeah.
And then I walked a bit further and I saw a mattress fly tipped in a lay-by, and I thought, is this what it's going to be like? Should I be taking photographs of all these to share? And then I thought, no, I'm not going to get involved. I'm just going to leave it be. And in fairness, after that, I hardly saw anything. The place was clean and tidy, but it's actually amazing going from one side of the country to the other, just how the terrain and the landscape changes. So the west is obviously really wet. It was particularly wet when I did it. So the west was particularly wet and cold, and you're going through some pretty remote parts, and some of the farms, fair play to the farmers in terms of how they make a living in some of that land. But some of it's pretty bleak and remote, but there's a huge amount of industrialization as well. There's a huge amount of logging going on because a lot of the forests are now mature, so there's big forestry operations, and obviously at times you're quite close. You're either going through wind farms or there's new wind farms being provided. But it was quite interesting just that you sometimes look and think there's wind farms every place, but there's also bits where I could hardly see a wind farm for ages. So
that's not too bad.
Quite fascinating. And I did get really peaceful towards the last few days because I managed to totally run out of battery power, so I never actually had a mobile phone really. So I was left sitting at the finish, which is not the biggest village in the world, with about 10% battery life in my phone, trying to phone for a taxi to get to Dunbar. Fortunately, after my third call, some very nice taxi company came and got me and took me to the trains. And he also let me charge my phone up in his car, which is very kind of him. So,
well, that sounds quite stressful, actually. I mean, I had a situation last week, and when I ended up having an electric car for a day, I don't want to say what happened because, some people might be offended by it.
I did wonder how we're going to mark that down in our environmental sustainability figures for the year, Jane.
Well, the deer just came out of nowhere. That's all I can say. And so I had this electric car, and they said to me it'd be 100% charged. No worries, 100% charged, because I had to go to Livingston and back. So they brought it in and said, we didn't manage to charge it. So it's got 120 miles in it. Should be fine. I'm like, all right, okay, well, it's only 80 miles to return trip to Livingston. That'll be fine. I have never been so obsessed with looking at that mileage going down. It's one way of keeping to the speed limit. I tell you, there was absolutely no putting the foot down. And then I realised later that there was an eco mode, a driving mode, and a sports mode. So I put it into the eco mode, and I was like limping along going, please let me get back. It's not like you can just call into I was going to say it's not like you can call into a petrol station.
Was there not charging at the venue you're at now? Some
Well,
of the
no.
venues. Yeah.
Well, yeah. But I just thought, you can go into a petrol station and just charge up, but then you can't actually go into a petrol station anymore and get petrol anymore either. I mean, I must have gone around 3 petrol stations the other night trying to find some petrol. Yeah. So trying to be environmentally friendly and using an electric car, I can see its advantages, but I think at the moment I'm probably going to stick to my petrol car.
You would get used to that. I had similar problem. I needed fuel, so I needed to find shops that sold me food, which was on occasion a challenge because that path I did was actually quite remote. So for 3 or 4 days I had no shops.
Oh my gosh, you must be starving.
My stress was actually running out. Well, the challenge is always how much do you carry versus. So you don't want to carry too much, so you don't take too much food with you. But then once you get hungry, you're like, I should have taken
Yeah.
that extra pack of biscuits. So I never actually ran out. I came fairly close, but I never actually ran out. So I made it. I could have
Okay.
I could have detoured. But when I say a detour, like 3 or 4 miles to a village, it's like 3 or 4 miles is
That's a long
an hour
way.
and a half's walk. It's a
Yeah,
long way.
especially when you're doing 214 or whatever you did altogether. 3
Yeah.
miles is, yeah, makes a difference. Okay, let's go on to our
Anyway,
news then, instead of our discussion
chit
about
chat.
yeah. So we've got quite a lot of news, haven't we, Alasdair? We're focusing on news today.
It's almost a plastic news after the first few items.
Yeah, it is. So the first one I've got here is about the illegal dumps, and we've talked about the Kidlington one before, and that is being cleared up at a cost of more than 9 million, which is obviously being paid for by taxpayers' money, as far as we can see. And then it's also 3 of the worst illegal rubbish dumps in England are also set to be cleaned up at the taxpayers' expense. So we've got huge tips in Wigan, Sheffield, and Lancashire. 48,000 tonnes of waste between them, and we're all paying for it. Yeah. And I think there's quite a lot more super sites that angry residents are not happy about those not being cleared or identified. So yeah, so who does it cost in the end? Us.
I can sort of understand the legal thing saying it's up to the landowner to do it, but I can also understand the landowner saying, well, because in theory a landowner could let people tip and then get the benefit, but I also don't think it's their fault either. So it's a real challenge. Maybe there should be something. Maybe there should be an allowance in the landfill tax or something. A certain portion of the landfill tax put aside to sort of look after these illegal sites or sites that don't end up with anybody owning them or whatever.
Yeah.
The other one I spotted was the one that came to fame in Corby. So this is the former quarry that was used to dump the when they demolished the steelworks, and it was made a little bit famous. There was a Netflix documentary a couple of year or so ago called Toxic Town that we talked about in one of the episodes, or a couple of episodes, I think. And this was all about the emissions from demolishing the Corby Steelworks actually caused a lot of ill health and deformities in people in that area. But what they reckon is the landfill they used was covered over, and it was built into a speedway. But now they've demolished the speedway, so they think there's more water getting into the old former quarry, and that's now leaching out the site. So they've got a contamination issue they're now dealing with. So probably quite political and sensitive as well in terms of the previous issues.
Yeah, because it did say early 2000s a family successfully sued Corby Borough Council over the contamination linked to the quarry. So, you think at that point they would have done something about it and
It was a good
prevented
documentary.
it.
Did you ever
I
see it?
never watched it. I
No, it was good actually.
had it.
Toxic Town. It's still on. It's still there.
Yeah, I did have it on my
Yeah,
list of things to
your list to
watch,
do.
actually.
No, it's quite scary. It's quite scary.
So another one we've got here is, do you know what? It's England again, and they're looking to do 3 weekly collections in this one council area.
Not a 3 weekly collection, Jane. 3 weekly residual collections. So
Sorry, yeah.
they're still getting a weekly collection.
Yeah, 3 weekly residual collections, which, from once a fortnight to once every 3 weeks from 2027. So, they've got some time to get used to it. But what they say, they can save £3.4 million with this scheme and all of this sort of stuff. But there's a big campaign. But what gets me is, at the moment, until before the 1st of April, I could understand that. But now, 1st of April, simpler recycling. We've got all of these fancy simple recycling bins down in England, plus their food waste bin. So I would have thought 3 weekly residual collections was not a problem. I mean, I have
I
3
do.
weekly residual collections up in our council, like that. It's mostly fine.
The headline of it putting an additional burden on residents. It's not an additional burden. It's just getting residents to use the system that's been provided properly. But we've ranted about that one for a while.
It's a good job we're perfect, isn't it, in our waste habits?
Absolutely. My green bin's never more than got a bag in the bottom. Never is definitely 3 weekly. You could go to 4 weekly quite easily, I think. If you've got food waste collection and you've got cardboard and metal and plastic, you could quite easily go to 4 weekly collection. But whether the councils
there'll be campaigns against that, Alasdair, blimey. You'll be doorstepped and everything.
Right. But you think the thing is as well, when you look at that 3.4 million, I don't know how long a period that is over it, but imagine that's a year. Surely residents want. So basically, what the council's saying, if you recycle properly, that'll save us 3.4 million. So that is either going into other services or it's coming off your council tax.
Yeah.
It's not that big a thing to ask, really, is it?
No.
Anyway,
No.
that
Seems
was
reasonable to me.
That was almost a rant each June, wasn't it?
I know.
So the next, we've got quite a few that are all based on plastic and bioscience and microplastics. So the first one I spotted was this. So scientists have worked out, and it's been published in the Frontiers in Microbiology, which is a scientific journal, that 3 species of bacterium in combination are capable of breaking down, I'm not going to say this, PAE diethylphthalate, an important I knew I wasn't going to say it right. we'll put it in the newsletter in case nobody works out what I'm saying. And basically what it's saying is the 3 bacteria on their own can't do it, but they've worked out that each bacteria can do a little bit, and between the 3 of them working together, they can actually break it down. So there seems to be quite a lot of interest in this, whether you can get bacteria to break down and consume plastics. I think you've got one from a similar vein, Jane.
I have. I've got one about cockroaches. Cockroaches can get rid of nearly 55% of the polystyrene it eats in 42 days. And it's saying...
Poor cockroach getting fed polished.
I know, it's not very pleasant, is it, poor thing? But what it says is the cockroach's gut microbes, so the stuff in its belly, are working inside the cockroach to break it all down, similar to those microbes you were just talking about. And then once it's broken down, the cockroach is actually using the broken down products for a fuel, like for running and moving and all of this sort of stuff. So what it's saying is the study reports that they removed 54.9% of what they consumed. But like I say, I have actually learned a new word today, and the word is frass, which, if you have a look, it means cockroach poo. So they've had a look at this cockroach poo and found out that, yes, there's still plastics and polystyrene in it, but it's been kind of broken down to smaller bits of plastic. So there's still, from what my interpretation is, being quite simplistic, they've still got microplastics or plastics in the cockroach poo. Yeah, that stuff, but not as much as there was before. Is my interpretation.
Watch this space. Watch this space. Now that we've been Googling cockroach poo and microplastics and bacteria, we'll get all lots of news articles in this space. So you'll never know what will come up next.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're all genuine and they weren't picked up on the 1st of April. I don't think anywhere.
Do you know what gets me? So how do people, how do they think about this? How do they think that cockroaches can do something with polystyrene? It's like, they're clever. I know.
There'll be some mad scientist that does lots of science on cockroaches decided to do something. So So, on a slightly connected vein, a high school student in Virginia, Mia Heller, has worked out. So, what she was concerned about, she discovered when she was a teenager that her area had ongoing water quality issues, and the water tests had revealed that daily consumption was highly contaminated with PFAs and microplastic pollution. And the water authority there was not going to really do anything about it, and they just said you had to filter out yourself. And they struggled to find a way to do it. But she's piloted a way of using a ferrofluid, a magnetic oil that binds the microplastic in flowing water. So she puts this ferrofluid into the water. It sort of bonds to the microplastic, and then she's got a way of taking that back out of the water. And she's trying to work out a way of whether she can scale that up. And well, two things she's trying to work out is one, making sure the water, once it's been treated, is clean enough to drink, and then what she does, how she managed to capture the plastic out of the magnetic oil, and how she can reuse that. So I thought it was quite exciting for a student.
Not bad for a teenager. I'm impressed with that one.
Yeah.
So once we've got our plastics, there's a scientists have created a tool capable of detecting the amount of recycled plastics in a container, which again is quite good because, it's saying, oh yeah, you've got to have 33% recycled plastics in your containers, blah blah blah. But how do you know that? So they've created this tool, and it kind of just zaps it in some sort of scientifically kind of fancy way, and it looks at actually looking at the recycled material, because apparently it flows in different ways and there's different bubbles created or something like that when it's actually created as a plastic. And that's what it's actually looking at, small chemical changes, and gives the system a fingerprint that ordinary inspection could never supply. So basically they do all that and they can actually sort it out and find it.
I think that's
impressive.
That's quite an exciting one. I noticed in the end of the article there were, although they can do the test, they've not sort of put it all into one bit of equipment. So the next step is to put it into one bit of equipment. But to be able to say, so when the manufacturer's saying we use 10% recycled product, to be able to go out and test that they're actually doing that would actually be, for the recycling plastic market, that'd be really good.
Yeah, because it says no single measurement could reliably name the recycled share. So they looked at machine learning and different software as well. So yeah, it's quite impressive actually. I was quite impressed with that, by my technical explanation. It did talk about, all sorts of infrared and that kind of thing, but there was different things that they used. But
it seemed to be 5 different tests they were using.
Yeah.
5 different tests, and the reaction to the 5 different tests seemed to give them quite a good answer, if you like.
Yeah, but I was going to say, well, we'll give you the link, and you can
absolutely
look at it and all the technical details about melting rates of plastics and static.
The next one is probably not quite as positive, and it's the fact that scientists have tracked down that the microplastic pollution they were measuring may partly be down to the measuring the plastic contamination that's coming off their own lab gloves. So the University of Michigan did a study, and they worked out this. So there's a soap-like residue used to pop disposable gloves out of factory molds, and even a light dry touch sheds thousands of these false positive particles onto lab equipment. So they reckon they've actually been measuring their own gloves when they've been doing the test. But I was thinking about this: how do you run a lab and not wear lab gloves? If you're going to run a microplastic lab test, how do you test for it without wearing lab gloves?
Well, why do you need lab gloves? Can you not just use your
Because
hands?
I'm assuming they're using lab gloves with some of the chemicals they'll be using will be corrosive or acidic or alcohol, so they need the gloves to protect themselves.
Yeah, don't know.
So I don't know how big I don't know how big a real problem this, but it is. I think there's maybe a bit of thought that some of the microplastic results are maybe a bit overstated from previous tests.
Because it's all from people's gloves.
We probably need an expert in this field.
Plastics.
I'm trying to think who is our guest from a long time ago.
Yes, So we've got there's another interesting one. We've come away from plastics now, but this is about window glass. And the
Erin
problem
a,
with
Erin a Brown episode
Erin
20, so
Brown, it
it
was a
was
long
a
time
long
ago.
time ago. There you go.
Yeah, she
So
was looking at lots of microplastics, wasn't she? Episode 12. So I
20.
was 20. No, 12 is me, actually. Sorry, I just get confused sometimes. Give people the the right one to listen to. So anyway, discarded window glass. So normally discarded window glass is quite difficult to recycle and recover. But what they've been doing, instead of having to do that, they're looking at whether or not they can use the flat glass can be reused in new window systems. So instead of having to break it up or try and melt it or whatever, it's actually reusing it as what it was supposed to be there in the first place. I think some of the issues has always been the glass strength. If it's recycled, is the strength sufficient? But they've got some testing stuff to look at the glass strength and bending tests and force. So yeah, so that looks like there's definitely a second life for your windows.
Quite a big
Yeah.
focus. It's quite a big tonnage when they're talking about 220,000 tons a year.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
lot,
good. That's
a lot of
quite a lot,
glass.
isn't it?
Just instead of crushing it and recycling it, they're actually reusing it, which is all quite positive if they can pull it off.
Yeah, so I think this is a team from Munich University of Applied Sciences. We're obviously going for the research at the moment, but you kind of think, well, to some extent, you'd like to think glass is being reused anyway, but I think it's just getting that reliable testing, isn't it? So when you put it in, it's not going to pop out again or crack or
Yeah.
whatever.
And the last one from me today is a really depressing one, and it's not an April Fool because it was issued
I thought
before
it was an
April
April
1st.
Fool.
It's not an April Fool, about a squirrel that was filmed vaping in a London park, presumably because it had mistaken the fruity smells for food. So somebody managed to film this poor squirrel with a vape in its mouth, puffing away
Oh no, that's sad, isn't
under
it?
it, which is
Poor
really,
thing.
really sad.
It is sad. It's such a shame.
Jane and I, my views about vapes, so the less said about the better. But I will put the link in if anybody's wanting to watch a video of a squirrel vaping.
The last one for me, and I really like this one. Well, it's not a good one, to be honest. Again, this is perhaps another depressing one. But there's a village in East Yorkshire which seems to be their dumping ground for dozens of empty Sauvignon Blanc bottles. So bags full of empty bottles have been turning up on the grass verge for months. One farmer says the most he's ever collected in one day is 48. Now, presumably, this is either a restaurant or something, but it looks like it's all the same bottles as well. It's just the same. I think, what was it? What were they? They were
Do you recognise the
Moselle.
brand?
Yes, I do. That sounds quite sad, actually. But yeah, so
Some have got blue lids.
Villa Maria, which costs £10.75 in the supermarket, and is said to pair well with seafood and tangy goat's cheese. Well, there you go. But they still don't know where it's come from.
It looks more like a pub. It's either somebody with a
Yeah.
drink problem or a pub, isn't it?
Must have a heck of a drink problem if it's 48 bottles in one day.
It's one.
And then they've got a local WhatsApp group to have a chat about how many bottles have been collected on that day. It's funny in a way, but not funny in another way.
It's quite sad to the into. Quite
Yeah,
sad.
I mean, it's not like they're cheap bottles. £10.75 is a reasonable quality of a bottle.
That was there. If you go around Coatbridge and Airdrie, you go out in the wilderness, you could always find a Buckfast bottle lying in a hedge someplace.
Absolutely. I don't think you have to go in the wilderness. They're
And
just there everywhere.
if you go to the Western Isles, you always get half bottle of whiskey sat on the roadside as well. It was also empty.
I was going to
But
say, is somebody coming back for it?
no, it was always empty. They were
Mm.
always a certain distance from the pub in the
Is this
Western
how long
Isles.
it takes to drink these?
Yeah, that's how long it took to drink the half bottle after we left the pub. So anyway, I think that's all our news. So we're struggling for a rant this week. We're not like this to struggle for a rant. A bit of a rant about simpler recycling came in 1st of April, and as we said earlier, there's quite a few news stories about how difficult this is going to be for the public and all that sort of nonsense. But hopefully we'll get over that. But the one that keeps triggering me when we did go looking is this exchange for change logo, this DRS logo. It's like, how backwards a logo could we actually put on this DRS system? It just doesn't strike me as being a modern, just strikes me as a really backwards logo or slogan. Am I being
Yeah.
harsh?
Well, I mean, you'd be in a bonnet about this one, Alasdair. So, I would agree with you, but I don't have quite the same sort of. I'm not quite as upset about it.
I'm not hugely upset. I just don't think it's just. I don't think it's gonna.
Yeah.
People are just not going to play a blind bit of difference to it. It's just not.
No. No.
I'm not going to be
I would
excited
agree.
because I see that logo on the side of a bottle.
No,
I don't.
and
I
I'm
don't know
cool.
what. I don't know what I would be excited about seeing on the side of the bottle, but I don't think it's. Yeah. I don't know. Don't know.
Yeah, I would be excited if it said, "This is a bottle of wine with 0 calories, but still the right amount of alcohol." But anyway, never mind.
So there we go. I think that's us.
I think we're
That's.
finished, haven't we?
I think
Done
that's us
everything?
done for episode 105.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. See you again next Thursday at 4 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share with friends, and send us your feedback at hello@rubbishtalk.co.uk.